If Disney applies their full weight to the upcoming release of their new trading card game, Lorcana, they will overtake Pokemon in the US and become the most popular trading card game and possibly the most popular type of trading cards overall.
Welcome, Illumineers and fans of the happiest card game on Earth. My name is Jonty Sparrow, and this is the Illumineers. This is a Lorcana-centric YouTube channel discussing the upcoming trading card game by Ravensburger, and I myself am a manager at a local game store that, amongst other things, sells Pokemon and will soon be selling Lorcana. The reason I wanted to point all that out at the beginning is that I'm about to give you my opinion. I think it's really important when you're listening to opinions on the internet that you know where those opinions are coming from and where their biases are. And believe me, this is a video all about biases. The clip you saw at the beginning there and the clips you're about to see in a longer form are by a guy called Jeff Wilson. Jeff has a relatively successful online presence with a relatively active fan base and seems to know his stuff around trading cards, mostly sports trading cards. But this little minute-long clip that I'm about to show you has kind of done the rounds this week in the trading card game world, as he takes it upon himself to declare that Lorcana, the upcoming game by Ravensburger that features Disney characters, is going to absolutely destroy Pokemon off the face of the earth. Now, this video made some ripples in the Lorcana community, but it made relatively big waves in the Pokemon one, perhaps rightly so. So this isn't just a rebuttal of Jeff's clip, it's also taking a look at some of the replies to Jeff's clip from the Pokemon world. Anyway, let's sort of break it down a bit.
Sorry, Charizard. Send my apologies to Pikachu, because I'm calling it now. If Disney applies their full weight to the upcoming release of their new trading card game, Lorcana, they will overtake Pokemon in the US and become the most popular trading card game and possibly the most popular type of trading cards overall. Okay,
there's a lot to unpack there. First of all, the hey Charizard, say sorry to Pikachu. They're the two Pokemon he knows. He then goes on to say that if Disney put their full weight behind Lorcana, it's going to go from strength to strength. It is worth mentioning at this point that this isn't necessarily a Disney trading card game. That Disney's on the box, Disney is the license behind this, but this game is being built, manufactured, put out there by a company called Ravensburger. They're a German toy company. They've been going for 100 years. They know what they're doing, although this is their first real venture into the TCG space. They make the popular Villainous board games. There's a couple of them behind me there, and I think that's probably where this sort of agreement with Disney has developed from. And there are sort of reports out there that Disney did approach them with the original concept of doing a trading card game, but you have to remember that this is a Ravensburger product with the Disney label on it. Disney are most likely just signing off on the art and shaving off a percentage here. He then goes on to say it's going to be the most popular trading card game in the USA and maybe even the most popular type of trading card. I don't really know what that means. He thinks they're going to beat sports cards? I also think it's worth pointing out that depending on who you ask and when you ask them, Magic the Gathering is the most popular trading card game in the US. It kind of flitters between Pokemon and Magic depending on the metrics you use, but yeah, like there's no mention of Magic here, and I think that's worth noting.
Yes, I know there are millions of die-hard Pokemon collectors and game players, and I am fully aware of the global strength of the Pokemon brand. But let's be honest, isn't our relationship with Pokemon here in the US a little strange?
No, that's a weird straw man. He's well aware of the global phenomenon that is Pokemon. Good, he should be. It's been going for 30 years now, maybe 25, something like that. I'm not really that up on my Pokemon these days, but there's no denying that it is a global brand and huge in the US. I don't understand what he means by our relationship is a little strange.
We don't really know the characters.
Bulbasaur, Ivysaur, Venusaur, Charmander, Charmeleon, Charizard, Squirtle, Wartortle, Blastoise, Caterpie, Metapod, Butterfree, Weedle, Kakuna, Beedrill, Pidgey, Pidgeotto, Pidgeot, Rattata, Raticate. The first original 150 are burnt into my brain. Now, I'm not so up on the newer stuff, although I do still usually will have a go at the games, maybe every other one I'll play, but there's no denying that if you go out on the street with a picture of Pikachu, most people will know who he is, or they might call him Pokemon, but I reckon just as many people in North America would recognize Pikachu as would Mickey Mouse. I feel probably older people might not recognize Pikachu but will recognize Mickey Mouse, but there is an argument to be said that younger people probably are more familiar with Pikachu than they are with Mickey Mouse. We don't really know the characters. What he means is he doesn't really know the characters.
There aren't blockbuster Pokemon movies on the screen most years.
Okay, that's a fair point. There aren't really. There have been like 20-something movies, but most of them are like a straight-to-DVD kind of thing. There's a couple of them on Netflix. Detective Pikachu came out a few years ago and was actually pretty good. Arguably one of the better video game movies that we've had. But yes, I suppose if we're keeping score, Disney win the number of good movies.
Nor is there a Pokemon theme park to enjoy.
Yes, there's no Pokemon theme park. That's what's been holding it back all of these years. Again, we're comparing apples and elephants right now.
The quality and variety of Pokemon shows, video games, and merchandise is often lacking.
So this is a really interesting one. The quality and variety of Pokemon shows and merchandise is often lacking. I've got so many things to say about this. First of all, quality is incredibly subjective. Most of the video games, I think, are relatively well received within the community. I've had a look at like scores, like aggregated scores, and they all seem to do pretty good. The TV shows, as far as I know, like for accessible anime, do okay. There's 1,000 episodes or something ridiculous, and again lots of movies and other ways that you can engage. So quality again is subjective, but I don't think Pokemon is considered to not be good by a lot of people. And then the variation and amount, I mean, this is a ridiculous statement. For every lunchbox I can find you with a Disney character on, I'm sure I could find you one with a Pokemon on. The same can be said for backpacks and school equipment and bed sheets and curtains and plush toys and jigsaws. All of that stuff has Disney and Pokemon on it. I genuinely can't think of a product line that Disney has that probably doesn't exist on Pokemon as well. And it's worth pointing out that all of this stuff is not made by the Pokemon company, and it's not made by Disney. It's all licensed. It's probably made in the same factory. The artists that animate the movies at Disney aren't clocking off at 5 o'clock and then quickly scribbling down drawings on lunchboxes for an hour before they go home. This is all licensed just as much as the Pokemon stuff is. It's not a fair argument to say that Pokemon doesn't have the wide breadth of merchandise available as Disney does, because I genuinely think for the most part, maybe some of the top end stuff that Disney does, some of the really crazy top end, like the diamond encrusted stuff and all that kind of thing, like maybe Pokemon doesn't quite get there, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think for the most part, if you go into a store and you go to areas of that store that are merchandisable and have various different IPs on there, I think you're going to see just as much Pokemon stuff as you're going to see Disney stuff, as you're going to see Marvel stuff and Star Wars stuff. I know that is Disney, but I do think it's worth separating in this argument. More on that in a moment. The other thing not more on that in a moment, more on that now. The other thing I wanted to say about this point is, in most of the rebuttals for this, and I did want to kind of pull them up a little bit as well, because whilst I do think for the most part the people who are responding to this clip are doing so in good faith, I think they are coming at it from a feeling of necessarily being attacked, because they're Pokemon people. These are Pokemon channels. These are people who crack packs on channels or follow the competitive scene. So I do think they're coming at it from really far across on the other side of the aisle as well. What they often do at this point is they show you that graphic. They talk specifically about this one graph that shows Pokemon being the largest IP in the world. Basically, Pokemon earns more money than everything else. Pokemon makes a hell of a lot of money, and most of it I think comes from the video games, but then also merchandise is a very big part of it. The actual TCG part of it is the smaller bit there, but it's still probably like 10 billion or something. It's pretty impressive, and they compare that to Disney. I think it's worth noting that in this list of 25, Disney actually owns about a dozen of them, and if you stick them all together, obviously surpass Pokemon 10 times over, even if you just take the first two, which is Winnie the Pooh and Mickey Mouse. Why is Winnie the Pooh so high up there? Like, I am just totally out of the loop with Winnie the Pooh stuff. Like, I guess that it's on everything. Like, you can buy baby clothes and baby bedding and stuffies and all that kind of stuff, but like, it's that big? It kind of amazes me. But anyway, Winnie the Pooh and Mickey Mouse, both Disney licenses. Winnie the Pooh, granted, is not a genuine Disney creation, and there is probably stuff out there that is being sold with Winnie the Pooh on it where the Disney don't take a revenue cut of. Like the original A.A. Milne stuff is there, I guess, but that number is not that they use the Disney logo there. This is the Disney Winnie the Pooh stuff that's making this money. I also think it's worth pointing out that these are broken down quite strangely and almost arbitrary. Like, Mickey Mouse has his own one, princesses have their own one. Later on, obviously, you can now include Star Wars and Marvel in all those, but even if you ignore those, further down the list, like Cars, Toy Story, all of those are broken out into their own ones as well. Arguably they are Pixar, but they're still, they're very much still under the Disney banner. I'd much happily put those ones under Disney than I would Marvel and Star Wars for the sake of this argument, but I don't really understand how they're broken down, and also I don't understand where a lot of Disney revenue streams would fit into this graph as well. Where under here would you put Disney Plus subscriptions? Where under here would you put theme park and cruise ship tickets? Whilst the people who are responding to this video very much in the Pokemon camp are very quick to pull this graph up and say, look, there's a bigger number next to Pokemon, I really don't think this image is really worth its salt. I'm not saying that Pokemon isn't a huge brand, and I'm not saying that the Disney one necessarily is larger, although, I mean, it is. What I'm saying is, don't necessarily put all of your arguments into an image that you found on the internet because it fits your bias. The data in this graph is sloppy at best and almost nefarious at worst. Anyway, back to our buddy Jeff.
Now in Japan, it's a totally different story, but here in the US, Pokemon fans have a pretty limited number of ways to really enjoy the brand.
Limited compared to Disney, perhaps, but again, the same argument applies. Everything that you can go out there and enjoy, you can do so with Pokemon, I'm sure. There are trading card games, video games, arguably a space that Disney doesn't do very well in, traditionally. Some of their more recent ones have been a little bit more savvy and have hit the ground running a little better. Dreamlight Valley, I believe, is doing quite well. But for the most part, a space that Disney haven't really ever had a good foot in. But yeah, it's all still out there, there's TV shows, there's movies, there's games, there's puzzles, there's songs, I guess. The argument that this guy's making just doesn't really exist.
Now compare that to Disney.
I just have. Okay, that's where that clip ends, and that's the next thing I wanted to talk about, is that oftentimes these sort of sound bites can be sort of taken out of context. So I did the due diligence and looked into Jeff, and like I say, for the most part, he seems, a relatively well-rounded dude who's really into trading cards. He has a really good setup, very professional-looking setup, and a fan base that seems to be engaged, and for the most part, enjoying his stuff. This minute video that everyone is sort of reacting to is just the first minute of an actual 50-minute long podcast that he does, all about this single topic. So I went and watched the whole thing. I have put a link down into the description so you can go and check it out yourself if you want to. But what I will say is, whilst the rest of the video is a little bit more measured perhaps, and I get the grind, I understand it, I know that you need that sort of clickbaity title, that first minute shock grab to get people invested, I understand that, and for the most part the topic conversation just settle down a little bit, and he does his due diligence. He has a guest on the show, a lady who is in the Pokemon camp, and discusses back and forth as to whether or not Lorcana is really going to affect the Pokemon trading card game. But his opinion doesn't shift at all, and he continues this sort of straw man-y kind of argument that's a little bit in bad faith, honestly, about the popularity of Pokemon in the US. But saying that, most of the replies coming from the Pokemon side of things are basically just shutting him down and saying Pokemon's the biggest thing ever, and obviously Disney have got no chance of making a dent in Pokemon because Pokemon's the greatest. It's a lot. My grandfather was a big centrist, and he would often say, if there is a man on one side of the aisle shouting loudly at a man on the other side of the aisle shouting back, then it's probably the guy pushing the drinks trolley down the middle who's closest to the truth. The trading card game space is arguably one of the most difficult for a new game to get into, but over the last few years we have seen more and more manage to carve themselves a small space in it. And if anyone is going to have a good run at this, it's a company like Ravensburger with the IP of Disney behind them. Is there a chance that Lorcana will topple Pokemon and completely crush it into the ground and become the biggest trading card game in the US? No, not really. Is there a chance that it's going to die on arrival and the might of Pokemon is going to crush it into the ground before it gets out of the starting gates? No, I don't think so. I think at least to begin with, the success of Lorcana is going to be purely down to the game itself. How well does it play? How accessible is it? How available is the product? And how well they nurture their local communities. Is there a chance Lorcana kills Pokemon? No. Is there a chance that Pokemon kills Lorcana? No. Is there a chance that there are going to be some people who like Pokemon and aren't really interested in Lorcana, and some people who really like Lorcana and don't play Pokemon, or some people that aren't interested in either and stick with Magic and Yu-Gi-Oh, or some people that maybe dabble a bit in both, or some people that are really into Pokemon but actually quite enjoy some of the Lorcana stuff as well, or some people that are really into Lorcana but kind of enjoy some of the Pokemon stuff as well? Yes, there is every chance that that's what's going to happen, and I personally am very looking forward to pushing the drinks trolley. Thanks for watching. Again, this is a Lorcana-centric channel, so moving forward we are going to be mostly talking about that as a trading card game, but if you have enjoyed this and you're looking forward to more Lorcana stuff, please hit subscribe before you go. If you're a Pokemon fan and YouTube showed you this video thinking it would get you seething, feel free to go at me in the comments if that helps. If not, thanks for stopping by and, go and catch them all. Either way, I love you all to bits. Till the next one, be good.